Sector. He traded scrap for the Giantess. First document. Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he sorted through the latest pile of salvaged metal in his workshop. The scorching twin suns of Kepler 442b beat down mercilessly on the corrugated roof of his ramshackle trading post. After 3 years on this frontier world, he had learned to make the best of what little the harsh planet offered. His fingers traced the smooth surface of a piece of titanium alloy, calculating its worth. Not bad for a morning's haul from the crashed freighter in Sector 7. The metal would fetch enough credits to keep his operation running for another week, maybe 2, if he was careful with his expenses. The sound of heavy footsteps outside made him look up from his work. Through the grimy window, he could see a massive figure approaching his shop. Marcus had dealt with many alien species during his time as a salvage trader, but this one was different. She stood nearly 9 feet tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the harsh sunlight. Her build was powerful, yet graceful, like a warrior carved from living stone. The door chimed as she entered, having to duck considerably to fit through the frame. Her amber eyes swept across the cluttered interior of his shop, taking in the organized chaos of sorted metals, electronic components, and various alien artifacts that Marcus had collected over the years. "You are the human trader," she said, her voice deep and resonant. It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded, setting down the titanium piece carefully. "Marcus Chen, at your service. What can I do for you today?" She reached into a large pouch at her side and produced something that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. It was a chunk of pure starfall crystal, the size of his fist. The rare mineral was worth more than everything in his shop combined. Starfall crystals were used in faster-than-light drives, and finding even a small piece was like winning the lottery. "I wish to trade this for passage off this world," she said simply. Marcus tried to keep his expression neutral, but his mind was racing. With a crystal like that, he could buy his own ship, maybe even a small fleet. He could leave this dusty planet behind and set up operations in the core worlds where real money changed hands. "That's quite a valuable piece," he said carefully. "May I ask where you acquired it?" Her expression darkened slightly. "It was payment for services rendered, services I no longer wish to provide." There was pain in her voice, hidden beneath layers of controlled anger. Marcus had learned to read people during his years of trading, and this alien woman was clearly running from something. The smart thing would be to ask more questions, to understand what kind of trouble she might bring to his doorstep. Instead, he found himself saying, "I can arrange passage, but it won't be immediate. The next scheduled transport isn't for 3 weeks, and booking passage for someone of your stature might take some additional arrangements." She nodded slowly. "I can wait, but I have nowhere to stay." Marcus looked around his small living quarters attached to the back of the shop. It was barely large enough for one person, let alone someone of her size. But that crystal could change everything for him. More than that, there was something about her that stirred a protective instinct he didn't know he possessed. "You can stay here," he heard himself saying. "I've got a storage bay that we could convert into temporary quarters. It's not luxury, but it's shelter." For the first time since she had entered his shop, her stern expression softened slightly. "You would do this for a stranger?" "Business is business," Marcus replied, though they both knew it was more than that. "That crystal is worth the inconvenience." Over the next few days, Marcus learned that her name was Zara, and she was a member of the Titan warrior caste from the Outer Rim territories. She had been enslaved by a mining consortium, forced to work in the dangerous crystal caves where her natural strength and resilience made her invaluable. The Starfall crystal had been her final payment before she managed to escape during a transport accident. As they worked together to prepare the storage bay for her temporary residence, Marcus found himself impressed by her intelligence and resourcefulness. She wasn't just physically powerful. She had a keen understanding of technology and engineering that rivaled his own. When his main power converter began acting up, she diagnosed the problem faster than he could and suggested a repair technique he had never considered. "Where did you learn about quantum field manipulators?" he asked, watching her carefully adjust the delicate components. "Titan education includes many subjects your people might not expect," she replied. "We are not just warriors, despite what the galaxy believes." Marcus began to see her differently. The other traders and settlers on Kepler 442b gave her a wide berth, intimidated by her size and the tribal scars that marked her arms. But Marcus saw past the fearsome exterior to the intelligent, cultured individual beneath. One evening, as they shared a meal of reconstituted protein and hydroponic vegetables, Zara asked him about his own story. "I was an engineer on Earth," Marcus explained, stirring his food absently. "Worked for one of the big tech corporations, designing mining equipment for the colony worlds. Good pay, stable life, everything mapped out." "What changed?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "My sister died in an industrial accident. Company equipment failure. They covered it up, paid off the investigators, made it disappear. I tried to fight it. But you can't take on a mega-corporation with empty pockets and idealism." Zara listened intently as he continued. "So I cashed in everything I had, bought a one-way ticket to the frontier, and started over. Out here, a man's word still means something. Your reputation is your currency." "And you've built a good reputation," she observed. "I try to deal fairly with everyone who comes through that door. Rich, poor, human, alien, doesn't matter. Honest trade, fair prices." He looked up at her. "Though I have to admit, you're the first customer to offer me retirement in a single transaction." That night, Marcus lay awake in his small bed, listening to the sounds of the alien world outside. Somewhere in the distance, the nocturnal hunters called to each other across the rocky plains. Closer by, he could hear Zara moving quietly in her makeshift quarters, probably unable to sleep on the unfamiliar world. He found himself thinking about her story, about the mining consortium that had enslaved her people. It reminded him too much of his own experiences with corporate greed and exploitation. The smart thing would be to complete the trade, arrange her passage, and use the crystal to start fresh somewhere else. But something about that plan felt wrong. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. 3 ships descended from the morning sky, sleek corporate vessels with the logo of Meridian Mining emblazoned on their hulls. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he recognized the insignia. Meridian was one of the largest mining operations in this sector, known for their aggressive tactics and questionable labor practices. Zara emerged from the storage bay, her expression grim. "They've found me." "Friends of yours?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "Former employers. They do not like to lose valuable assets." 6 figures in corporate security armor approached the trading post. Their leader, a human woman with cold gray eyes, stepped forward with the confident bearing of someone used to getting her way. "I'm Commander Sarah Voss, Meridian Security. We're looking for stolen property," she announced without preamble. Marcus stepped between her and Zara. "This is my trading post, Commander. I deal in salvage and legitimate goods. If you have a warrant, I'd be happy to see it." Voss smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We don't need warrants out here, trader. We're within our rights to recover stolen company assets." "I'm not stolen property," Zara said quietly, her voice carrying a dangerous edge. "Your contract says otherwise," Voss replied. "Titan Specimen 47 Alpha, contracted for mining operations under Galactic Labor Code 15.7. You still have 18 months remaining on your service agreement." Marcus felt anger building in his chest. Service agreement? That's a nice way of saying slavery contract. Voss's expression hardened. The Titan people entered into this arrangement willingly in exchange for technological advancement and protection. The arrangement is perfectly legal. Legal doesn't make it right, Marcus shot back. The commander's hand moved to the plasma pistol at her side. Stand aside, traitor. This doesn't concern you. Marcus looked back at Zara, seeing the resignation in her amber eyes. She was preparing to surrender, to return to a life of forced labor rather than see him come to harm. In that moment, he made a decision that would change everything. Actually, it does concern me, he said, reaching into his pocket. Because she's not your property anymore. He pulled out a data pad and activated the holographic display. As of yesterday, I purchased her contract from Meridian Mining for the sum of 1 starfall crystal, valued at approximately 2 million galactic credits. The transaction was processed through the Kepler Colonial Authority and is fully legal under both local and galactic labor codes. Voss stared at the displayed documentation, her confident expression faltering. This is impossible. Her contract wasn't for sale. Everything's for sale at the right price in... Commander, you should know that better than most. Marcus smiled grimly. The crystal she was carrying? That was payment in advance for services rendered. Mining location data for 17 different starfall deposits in this system. Your corporate masters were very interested when I made the offer. It was a complete fabrication. But Marcus had learned long ago that confidence and official-looking documents could carry you through almost any situation. The data pad showed what appeared to be a legitimate contract transfer, complete with corporate seals and authorization codes. In reality, Marcus had spent most of the night creating the forgery using his knowledge of Meridian's internal systems. Commander Voss spent several long minutes examining the documentation, looking for flaws in what appeared to be an airtight legal transaction. Finally, she looked up with barely controlled fury. Even if this is legitimate, it doesn't change anything. She's still bound by labor contract, just to a different owner now. Actually, Marcus said, pulling up another screen on the data pad, I freed her immediately upon purchase. Emancipation papers were filed this morning with the Colonial Authority. She's a free citizen now. Zara stared at him in shock. This was clearly not part of any plan they had discussed. Marcus could see the questions in her eyes, but also something else. Hope. Voss's team moved restlessly behind her, hands hovering near their weapons. The situation was rapidly deteriorating, and Marcus knew they were moments away from violence. Meridian Security wasn't known for accepting defeat gracefully, legal or otherwise. You've made a very expensive mistake, traitor, Voss said coldly. Meridian doesn't forget. We'll be watching you. As the security team retreated to their ships, Marcus felt the full weight of what he had just done settling on his shoulders. He had used the most valuable thing he had ever possessed to buy the freedom of someone he barely knew. Worse than that, he had made an enemy of one of the most powerful corporations in the sector. Why? Zara asked once they were alone. That crystal could have changed your life. Marcus looked at her, this powerful alien woman who had trusted him with her freedom and her future. Maybe it did change my life, just not the way I expected. As the corporate ships disappeared into the sky, Marcus realized that his quiet life as a frontier trader was over. He had chosen a side in a conflict much larger than himself, and there would be consequences. But looking at the gratitude and respect in Zara's amber eyes, he found that he didn't regret his choice. The question now was what came next. Zara was free, but freedom on a frontier world came with its own challenges, and Meridian Mining wouldn't give up easily. They had 18 months of what they considered stolen labor to account for, and corporate accounting was never forgiving. But for the first time since coming to Kepler 442b, Marcus felt like he was fighting for something that mattered. Not just survival or profit, but something bigger. Something worth the risk. He traded scrap for the Giantess, second document. 3 weeks had passed since the confrontation with Meridian Security, and the trading post had taken on a different atmosphere. Where once Marcus had worked alone among his salvaged goods, now Zara's presence filled the space with a sense of purpose he hadn't realized was missing. She had insisted on earning her keep, despite Marcus's protests that she owed him nothing. Her knowledge of advanced mining techniques and rare mineral identification had already proven invaluable. What Marcus had thought was ordinary scrap metal, Zara recognized as components from a crashed exploration vessel containing trace elements worth 10 times his original estimate. "The molecular structure is wrong for standard titanium," she explained, holding a piece up to the light streaming through the workshop window. "See how it refracts? This is Titan steel, used in deep space exploration hulls. The mining consortium on Vega Prime pays premium rates for this alloy." Marcus watched her work, marveling at how she could identify materials by touch alone. Her large fingers, which looked capable of crushing stone, moved with surprising delicacy as she sorted through the salvage. "Where did you learn all this?" he asked. Zara paused in her sorting. "My people are not just warriors, though the galaxy prefers to see us that way. We are engineers, scientists, artists. Before Meridian enslaved my clan, I was training to be a deep space surveyor. I knew the composition of 17 different star systems by memory." The pain in her voice was evident, and Marcus felt a familiar anger rising in his chest. He had seen too many talented individuals crushed by corporate greed, their potential wasted in service to profit margins. "Tell me about your people," he said, setting down his own work. "Your real culture, not what the galaxy thinks it knows." For the next hour, Zara spoke of the Titan homeworld, a massive planet with crushing gravity that had shaped her people into giants. She described floating cities carved from living crystal, art forms that incorporated quantum harmonics, and philosophical traditions that viewed the universe as a vast, collaborative project between all sentient life. "We believe that every being has a role to play in the great work," she explained. "Some are builders, some are teachers, some are protectors. The mining consortium saw only our strength and decided we were meant to be slaves." Marcus found himself drawn into her stories of a civilization far more advanced and nuanced than anything he had imagined. The Titans weren't the primitive warriors that galactic media portrayed, but a sophisticated people with their own rich traditions and technologies. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of another visitor. This time, it wasn't corporate security, but a battered cargo hauler piloted by Jack Morrison, one of the local independent miners Marcus had done business with for over a year. Jack emerged from his ship looking haggard and worried. He was a small, wiry man who had been working the asteroid fields since before Marcus arrived on Kepler 442b. His usual cheerful demeanor was replaced by obvious stress. "Marcus, I need to talk to you," Jack said, glancing nervously at Zara. "Privately." Marcus gestured toward the small office area of his shop. "Zara, this is Jack Morrison. Jack, meet Zara. She's my new business partner." Jack's eyebrows rose at that, but he nodded politely. "Ma'am." "Marcus, we really need to talk." In the privacy of the office, Jack's composure cracked completely. "Marcus, what the hell have you done? Word's gotten out about what happened with Meridian Security. Half the independent operations in this sector are scared to death." "Scared of what?" "Of you. Of being associated with someone who crossed Meridian mining." Jack ran his hands through his graying hair. "They've put the word out through the corporate network. Anyone who trades with you gets blacklisted. No docking privileges at corporate stations, no access to their supply chains, nothing." Marcus felt a cold pit forming in his stomach. "How many of our usual clients are corporate affiliated?" "About 70%, Jack said miserably. "Marcus, I've got 3 kids and a wife back on New Osaka. I can't afford to get blacklisted. I'm sorry, but I can't trade with you anymore." After Jack left, Marcus sat in his office staring at the financial projections on his computer screen. Without his regular clients, the trading post would be bankrupt within a month. He had known there would be consequences for crossing Meridian, but he hadn't anticipated how quickly they would move to isolate him economically. Zara appeared in the doorway, having obviously overheard the conversation. "This is my fault. I should leave before I destroy everything you've built." "No," Marcus said firmly. "This is exactly what they want. They're counting on us to panic, to give up and hand you back to them. I won't let that happen. But your business? We'll adapt or die. That's how things work out here." Marcus stood up, decision crystallizing in his mind. Besides, maybe it's time to stop playing by their rules entirely. That evening, Marcus made a series of encrypted communications to contacts throughout the sector. People he had dealt with over the years, independent operators who shared his distrust of corporate domination. By morning, he had assembled a meeting of 12 different traders, miners, and salvage operators at his facility. The group that gathered in Marcus's expanded workshop represented the backbone of the frontier economy. These were people who had carved out livings in the harsh outer systems, far from corporate oversight and protection. They were tough, independent, and increasingly frustrated with corporate encroachment on their territories. Meridian's blacklist isn't just about Zara, Marcus explained to the assembled group. It's about control. They want to eliminate independent operators and force everyone into their economic system. Sarah Kim, a salvage operator from the Deneb system, nodded grimly. "They've been squeezing us for months. New regulations, licensing requirements, inspection fees. Half my profit goes to corporate bureaucracy now." "Same here," added Carlos Vega, who ran asteroid mining operations in 3 different systems. "They're pricing us out systematically." Marcus activated a holographic display showing trade routes and economic data. "What if we created our own network? Independent traders dealing exclusively with each other, cutting corporate middlemen out entirely." The idea was ambitious to the point of seeming impossible. Creating an alternative economic network would require massive coordination, shared resources, and a level of trust that was difficult to achieve among independent operators who were used to working alone. But as the discussion continued, Marcus could see the possibility taking shape in the minds of his colleagues. They all had skills, resources, and connections that could be leveraged. What they lacked was coordination and a centralized hub for operations. "We'd need a base of operations," pointed out Elena Vasquez, who specialized in rare mineral trading. "Somewhere corporate security can't touch us." Marcus looked at Zara, who had been listening quietly throughout the meeting. "What do you think about the asteroid field in Sector 12? Zara considered for a moment. "The gravitational anomalies would make it difficult for large corporate ships to navigate safely. But with the right modifications, smaller vessels could operate there effectively." "There's a derelict mining station in that field," added Carlos. "Been abandoned for 10 years since the last owner went bankrupt. If we could restore it..." The meeting ran late into the night, as they planned what would become known as the Frontier Trading Collective. It would be a completely independent economic network, operating outside corporate control and jurisdiction. The old mining station would serve as their headquarters, with Zara's technical knowledge crucial to making it operational again. Over the following weeks, the abandoned station slowly came back to life. Marcus had never seen anything like Zara's engineering abilities in action. She could diagnose complex system failures by sound alone and improvise repairs using materials that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. "The reactor core is stable, but we need to reroute power through the secondary grid," she explained to the team of volunteers who had come to help with the restoration. "The primary conduits are too damaged to repair with available materials." Marcus watched her coordinate the work with quiet authority. The other traders, who had initially been intimidated by her size and alien appearance, quickly came to respect her expertise and leadership abilities. She had a gift for explaining complex technical concepts in simple terms and finding creative solutions to seemingly impossible problems. The station's main docking bay required complete reconstruction, but Zara had identified ways to use salvaged components from 3 different ship classes to create something entirely new. It wouldn't be pretty, but it would work. Human engineering focuses on standardization and redundancy, she explained to Marcus as they worked side by side installing new atmospheric processors. Titan engineering emphasizes adaptability and efficient resource utilization. Your people build things to last forever. My people build things to evolve. As the station took shape, word spread throughout the independent trading community. Operations that had been struggling under corporate pressure began to see hope for an alternative. Small convoys started arriving weekly, bringing supplies, expertise, and stories of corporate harassment from across the sector. Marcus found himself at the center of something much larger than he had originally envisioned. What had started as a simple attempt to protect Zara's freedom had evolved into a movement that could reshape the entire frontier economy. But success brought new challenges. Corporate intelligence networks had taken notice of the increased activity in Sector 12. Meridian Security conducted several routine patrols through the asteroid field, probing for weaknesses in the station's defenses. "They're testing us," Zara observed after the 3rd patrol in as many days, "looking for the best way to attack." Marcus studied the tactical displays showing ship movements throughout the sector. Meridian was definitely planning something, but their intentions weren't clear yet. A direct assault on the station would be difficult to justify legally, even under corporate law. "What would you do if you were them?" he asked. Zara was quiet for a long moment, her amber eyes studying the data with the intensity of a predator analyzing potential prey. "I would wait for a moment of weakness, then strike hard and fast, making it look like an accident or legitimate enforcement action." "Like what?" "A shipping accident, equipment failure, pirates." She looked at him with grim certainty. "Something that would destroy the station and everyone on it, removing the threat while maintaining plausible deniability." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's recycled atmosphere. He had known this fight would be dangerous, but the cold calculation in Zara's analysis made it real in a way that theoretical discussions couldn't. "How long do we have?" "Not long. They're moving additional assets into position. 3 more security vessels arrived at Meridian Station yesterday." Zara pulled up intelligence reports that their growing network had been gathering. "They're preparing for a major operation." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He walked through the restored corridors of the station, past the workshops where independent traders were building something unprecedented in the galaxy's recent history. Their success had made them a target, but backing down now would mean abandoning not just Zara, but dozens of other people who had risked everything to build a better future. He found Zara in the main engineering bay, working on modifications to the station's defensive systems. Even corporate security would think twice about attacking a target that could fight back effectively. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. She looked up from her work, tools looking small in her massive hands. "I keep thinking about my homeworld, about what happened when we tried to resist corporate exploitation the first time." Marcus sat down on a nearby workbench, sensing that she was about to share something important. "We had our own version of this," she continued. "A coalition of Titan clans that refused to sign labor contracts. We thought our technology and unity would be enough to protect us." "What happened?" Zara's expression darkened. "They turned us against each other, bought off some clan leaders, threatened others, created conflicts where none had existed before. By the time we realized what was happening, our coalition had collapsed from within." Marcus felt a new level of understanding about what they were facing. This wasn't just about trade routes or economic competition. It was about corporate power's fundamental opposition to any form of independent organization that threatened their control. "We won't make the same mistakes," he said quietly. Won't we? Zara challenged. Already I can see the stress fractures forming. Some traders want to focus purely on economic cooperation. Others talk about armed resistance. Elena thinks we should try to negotiate with corporate leadership. Carlos wants to expand rapidly before they can stop us. She was right. Marcus had noticed the same tensions developing within their growing collective. Success had brought not just external threats, but internal disagreements about direction and priorities. What do you think we should do? Zara set down her tools and looked directly at him. I think we should be ready to fight, not because we want to, but because they won't give us any choice. Corporate power doesn't negotiate with equals. It only understands strength and submission. As if summoned by their conversation, the station's communication system activated. Commander Sarah Voss appeared on the main screen, her cold gray eyes surveying the engineering bay with obvious disdain. Marcus Chen, Titan Specimen 47 Alpha, and all unauthorized personnel currently occupying Mining Station Kepler 77. Her voice carried the authority of someone making an official pronouncement. You are in violation of Galactic Mining Codes 15.4, 23.7, and 31.2. You have 48 hours to evacuate this facility and surrender all stolen corporate property. Marcus stepped forward. This station was legally abandoned. We've filed salvage claims through proper channels. Voss smiled coldly. Those claims have been rejected. Meridian Mining maintains operational rights to all facilities in this sector under our expanded territorial agreement with the Colonial Authority. Failure to comply will result in enforcement action. The transmission cut off, leaving Marcus and Zara staring at the dark screen. 48 hours wasn't much time to prepare for what was coming, but it might be enough to show Meridian that the Frontier Trading Collective wasn't going to roll over quietly. As alarms began sounding throughout the station, calling all personnel to emergency stations, Marcus realized that the real test of their new alliance was about to begin. He traded scrap for the Giantess, third document. The 48-hour ultimatum had expired 6 hours ago, and Meridian's fleet was visible on the station's long-range sensors. 12 ships, including 3 heavy cruisers that could reduce the mining station to scrap in minutes if they chose to open fire directly. Marcus stood in the command center that Zara had improvised from the station's old administrative offices. Around him, representatives from the Frontier Trading Collective worked frantically at jury-rigged control stations, coordinating defenses and emergency protocols. Incoming transmission, announced Elena Vasquez from the communications station. It's Commander Voss. Put her through. Voss appeared on the main screen, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a tall man in expensive corporate attire, his silver hair and cold demeanor marking him as someone far up the Meridian hierarchy. Marcus Chen, the man spoke before Voss could say anything. I am Director Hammond of Meridian Mining's Strategic Operations Division. I'm here to offer you a final opportunity to resolve this situation peacefully. I'm listening, Marcus replied, though he could see from Zara's expression that she expected nothing good from this conversation. Your organization has caused considerable disruption to lawful corporate operations in this sector. However, we're prepared to offer amnesty to all participants if you agree to our terms. Hammond's smile was practiced and empty. Surrender the Titan specimen for return to contractual obligations, abandon this facility, and dissolve your illegal trading collective. In exchange, we'll allow all human personnel to resume normal operations without penalty. The command center fell silent. Everyone understood what Hammond was really offering. Save yourselves by sacrificing Zara. It was exactly the kind of divide-and-conquer tactic she had warned about. That's not going to happen, Marcus said firmly. Hammond's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. I had hoped you would be more reasonable. Commander Voss, proceed with enforcement protocols. The transmission ended, and immediately the station's defensive sensors lit up with targeting locks. 12 different weapon systems were painting the facility, but no shots were fired yet. "What are they waiting for?" asked Carlos from the tactical station. Zara studied the sensor readings with professional interest. "They want to make this look legitimate. If they fire without provocation, it's an unprovoked attack. If they can bait us into shooting first, it becomes justified enforcement action." As if responding to her analysis, one of Meridian's smaller vessels broke formation and approached the station's main docking bay. The ship was broadcasting corporate security codes and demanding immediate boarding access. "They're going to try to take the station by force," Marcus realized. "If we resist, they'll claim we attacked corporate security personnel. And if we don't resist, they'll arrest everyone and seize all our assets," added Elena. Marcus looked around the command center at the faces of people who had risked everything to build something better than corporate domination. They were scared, but they were also determined. These weren't the kind of people who backed down from fights they believed in. "Zara, how long would it take to overload the station's main reactor?" She stared at him in shock. "Marcus, you can't be serious. That would destroy everything we've built. Better than letting Meridian have it. If we're going down, we take their boarding party with us. Send a message that independent traders aren't easy targets." "There's another option," Zara said quietly. All eyes turned to her as she activated a secondary display. The station's mining laser array. It was designed to crack asteroids for mineral extraction, but with some modifications, Marcus understood immediately. The mining lasers were industrial equipment, not weapons, which meant using them wouldn't technically constitute an attack on corporate security. It would be a mining accident, a very precisely targeted mining accident. "How long do you need?" 10 minutes to recalibrate the targeting systems, another 5 to charge the arrays." Zara was already moving toward the engineering station. "But Marcus, once we do this, there's no going back. We'll be at war with Meridian Mining. We've been at war since the moment we refused to hand you over. They just haven't started shooting yet." As Zara worked to modify the mining equipment, Marcus opened a channel to all ships in the collective's growing fleet. Over the past few weeks, their network had attracted not just traders, but also independent security contractors, salvage operators, and even a few retired military personnel who were disgusted with corporate policies. "All collective vessels, this is Marcus Chen. Meridian is attempting to seize our station by force. We're going to show them that frontier traders don't roll over when threatened. Stand by for coordinated response." The next few minutes passed in tense silence as both sides maneuvered for advantage. Meridian's boarding craft continued its approach, while the larger vessels maintained their threatening positions. On the station, the mining laser arrays slowly rotated toward new targeting coordinates. "Incoming message from the boarding craft," Elena announced. "This is Lieutenant Morrison of Meridian Security," came a young man's voice. "You are in violation of lawful corporate authority. Prepare for immediate boarding and inspection." Marcus keyed the response channel. "Lieutenant, you are approaching a civilian mining facility engaged in lawful asteroid processing operations. For your safety, please maintain minimum distance of 5 kilometers while our industrial equipment is active." It was a polite warning that everyone understood was really an ultimatum. Come closer and face the consequences. "Meridian Security does not recognize civilian authority in this sector," Morrison replied. Continuing approach. Zara looked up from her work. "Arrays are ready. Target is locked." Marcus took a deep breath. Once he gave this order, everything would change. The Frontier Trading Collective would no longer be just an economic organization, but an active resistance movement. People would die, and he would be responsible. But looking around the command center at people who had already sacrificed so much for the chance at independence, he knew there was really no choice. Fire. The station's mining laser array discharged with a brilliant flash that was visible even through the heavily filtered viewports. The energy beam, designed to vaporize solid rock, struck Meridian's boarding craft amidships and cut through its hull like it was made of paper. The small vessel's reactor core breached immediately, creating a secondary explosion that lit up the asteroid field. There were no survivors. For a moment, both fleets hung in space as if frozen by shock. Then all 12 Meridian vessels opened fire simultaneously. The station's defensive shields, hastily improvised from mining equipment and salvaged military components, held for nearly 30 seconds under the concentrated bombardment. When they finally collapsed, the follow-up missiles reduced entire sections of the facility to twisted metal and venting atmosphere. But the Frontier Trading Collective had learned from Titan philosophy about adaptability and evolution. They weren't trying to hold a fixed position against superior firepower. Instead, they were using the asteroid field itself as both weapon and shield. Phase 2, Marcus announced as emergency bulkheads sealed off the destroyed sections of the station. All vessels execute Dispersal Pattern 7. Throughout the asteroid field, small ships that had been hiding in the shadows of large rocks suddenly came to life. The collective had spent weeks positioning assets throughout the area, creating a maze of ambush points and escape routes that larger corporate vessels couldn't effectively navigate. Zara had coordinated the defensive plan with the same engineering precision she brought to every project. She understood that they couldn't win a conventional battle against Meridian's superior firepower, but they didn't need to win conventionally. They just needed to make the cost of victory unacceptably high. Mining charges activated throughout Grid 7, reported Carlos from his position aboard a fast attack craft hiding behind a particularly large asteroid. Meridian's lead cruiser is in position. Marcus watched the tactical display as precision explosives, designed for breaking apart asteroids for easier processing, detonated in carefully calculated sequence. The explosions sent massive chunks of rock spinning toward Meridian's formation, forcing the corporate ships to break their attack pattern to avoid collision. In the confusion that followed, the collective's scattered vessels struck from multiple directions. They weren't trying to destroy the larger ships, which would have been impossible with their limited firepower. Instead, they targeted engines, weapons systems, and communications arrays. Death by 1,000 cuts. Corporate reinforcements incoming, Elena announced from her position on the station. Long-range sensors show 6 more vessels approaching from Meridian Station. Marcus felt his heart sink. They had inflicted significant damage on the initial attack force, but they couldn't sustain this kind of engagement against waves of fresh enemies. The collective's ammunition and energy reserves were limited, while Meridian could draw on the resources of an entire corporate empire. That's when Zara surprised everyone. Marcus. I need you to trust me, she said, moving toward the station's main docking bay. There's something I haven't told you about my people's technology. Before he could ask what she meant, alarms throughout the station began sounding a new warning. Something massive was approaching through hyperspace, its gravity signature unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. What the hell is that? Carlos demanded over the communication link. The answer came in the form of a ship that defied every conventional understanding of space vessel design. It was easily the size of Meridian's largest cruiser, but its organic curves and crystalline surfaces marked it as utterly alien in origin. As it dropped out of hyperspace, smaller vessels began emerging from what looked like growth chambers along its hull. Titan Clan ship, Zara announced with quiet satisfaction. I may have sent a few messages to my homeworld describing the situation here. The massive vessel opened communications on a frequency that somehow reached every ship in the area simultaneously. The voice that spoke was deep and resonant, carrying the authority of ancient wisdom and the promise of terrible retribution. Corporate vessels, you will cease hostile actions immediately. The beings you have attacked are under clan protection. Director Hammond's voice came through the general channel, no longer smooth and confident. This is Director Hammond of Meridian Mining. You have no authority in this sector. We have the authority of strength and righteousness, the Titan commander replied. You have enslaved our people and attacked those who sought to free them. This aggression will not be tolerated. What followed could barely be called a battle. Meridian's weapons, designed for fighting human vessels, were completely ineffective against Titan technology that incorporated principles of quantum engineering beyond current galactic understanding. The corporate ships found their targeting systems confused by energy signatures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Meanwhile, Titan vessels moved through space with impossible grace, their weapon systems reaching out to disable enemy ships with surgical precision. Within minutes, the entire Meridian fleet was drifting powerless, their crews alive, but their vessels completely neutralized. This sector is now under clan protection, the Titan commander announced. Any future corporate aggression will result in direct intervention by the Titan Defense Fleet. We suggest you adjust your policies accordingly. As the corporate ships limped away under escort, Marcus found himself standing beside Zara in the station's observation deck, watching the most beautiful vessels he had ever seen performing what looked like an intricate dance among the asteroids. You called for backup, he said finally. Zara smiled, the first truly relaxed expression he had seen on her face since they met. I sent word that humans had shown themselves capable of understanding Titan values of cooperation and mutual aid. My clan decided that such allies were worth protecting. And Meridian? We'll think very carefully before threatening independent traders again. Titans have long memories, and we don't forgive easily. Marcus looked out at the growing fleet of ships gathering around the station. Word was already spreading throughout the sector that the Frontier Trading Collective had not just survived corporate retaliation, but had gained powerful allies. Independent operators who had been too scared to join before were now requesting membership in increasing numbers. What happens now? He asked. Zara gestured toward the Titan clan ship, where docking bays were opening to receive delegations from the collective's member organizations. Now we build something that has never existed before in this galaxy. An economic alliance between humans and Titans based on mutual respect instead of exploitation. Over the following months, the partnership between the Frontier Trading Collective and the Titan clans revolutionized commerce throughout the outer systems. Titan technology, combined with human adaptability and entrepreneurial spirit, created innovations that corporate researchers had been unable to achieve despite decades of effort. Marcus found himself serving as one of the primary liaisons between the two species, a role that required him to travel regularly to Titan space. The floating crystal cities that Zara had described were even more beautiful in person, architectural marvels that incorporated both artistic vision and advanced engineering. But it was the cultural exchange that proved most valuable. Humans learned Titan approaches to sustainable technology and collaborative decision-making, while Titans gained appreciation for human creativity and individual initiative. The result was a hybrid economic model that prioritized both collective welfare and personal freedom. The trading station in Sector 12 became the hub of an ever-expanding network that eventually included dozens of star systems. Corporate attempts to interfere were deterred by the knowledge that Titan clan ships patrolled the major trade routes, ready to respond to any threats against their human allies. One evening, as Marcus and Zara worked together in the expanded engineering bay of what was now officially known as Haven Station, she asked him if he ever regretted his decision to trade that starfall crystal for her freedom. Marcus looked around at the bustling facility filled with beings from a dozen different species, all working together to build something better than what corporate domination had offered. Through the viewports, he could see human and Titan vessels docked side by side, their crews sharing knowledge and resources in ways that would have been unimaginable just a year earlier. I was wrong about one thing, he said finally. That crystal didn't change my life. It gave me a completely new one." Zara smiled and returned to her work, but not before Marcus caught the look of contentment in her amber eyes. She had found something she hadn't expected when she first walked into his trading post: a home, a purpose, and proof that the galaxy still had room for beings who chose cooperation over exploitation. The Frontier Trading Collective continued to grow, eventually becoming a major economic force that corporate entities could no longer ignore or dismiss. But more importantly, it demonstrated that alternative models of organization were possible, inspiring similar movements throughout the galaxy. Years later, historians would mark the establishment of Haven Station as a turning point in galactic politics, the moment when independent worlds began to assert themselves against corporate hegemony. But for Marcus, it would always be remembered as the day he discovered that sometimes the most valuable trades are the ones that can't be measured in credits or commodities. The alliance between humans and Titans proved that the galaxy's greatest resource wasn't rare minerals or advanced technology, but the potential for different species to work together toward common goals. It was a lesson that would reshape interstellar civilization for generations to come, all because one human trader decided that some things were more important than profit. In the end, Marcus had indeed traded scrap for a giantess who could carry supplies, but what she had really carried was the promise of a better future, not just for themselves, but for everyone willing to believe that independence and cooperation were not contradictory values. As the twin suns of Kepler 442b set through the viewport of Haven Station, casting long shadows across the bustling docking bays where dozens of species worked side by side, Marcus reflected on how far they had all come. The scared refugee who had walked into his shop with a starfall crystal had become the architect of a new kind of galactic civilization. And the lonely trader who had been willing to risk everything for a stranger's freedom had found his place in a universe much larger and more hopeful than he had ever dared to imagine.